record this now. And so he was talking about the air volume being the amount of air which controls loudness and softness, and the air speed controls the pitch. As the speed goes up, the volume should go down. His example was if you're going to play a G in the middle of the staff, that's bass treble clef. If you want to play up the octave, the speed is doubled times 2. Do you need to go, Greg? Oh, sorry. The speed is doubled, but the volume is halved. So it's a proportion. So one thing I did with that formula, hey, Kathy is here. Good. Kathy, we were talking about T is for 3 in the 3 compressions, and I'll review it at the end, what you missed. So what Brian Davis was saying for playing higher, you actually have to have higher speed air, but less volume. So as the speed gets faster, the volume gets smaller. So to play up the octave, a G, as middle staff G, and play the high G, your speed is twice as fast, but the volume air is half as fast. Now, when we practice our breathing exercises, and we practice going, but that's not really doing volume control, which is the amount of air. So what I've been practicing is breathing in, filling the top, filling more, and then playing and trying to play with blowing with a lot of speed, but very little volume. So I've been going. Now you probably can't hear the air, but if I'm playing really fast, I can hear the sound go up in pitch. And I don't have to necessarily buzz, but I'm really cutting back on the volume. And they say, Brian says, that's how you play higher. So if you're using less volume of air, you should be able to play a lot longer too. So I've been practicing doing that, and I think my high notes are getting better. I could actually play that C last Wednesday, the high C. I can play higher than that, but at the end of practice, I couldn't play it, but at the beginning, I could. So he says that the 3 compressions are your lips, your lungs, and your tongue. Raising your tongue compresses and makes the speed of the air faster. He says to rely on the lungs, tongue second, and lips last, because if you rely on your lips, you're going to wear them out and your endurance isn't going to be as good. He says this is a problem with beginning students, and he says he's not placing any blame on instructors because he doesn't know how to explain it any better to a beginning student. But if you want them to play a higher note, you say, blow harder.
Yeah, that's right.
Blow harder, and it works. You say blow harder and pinch your lips more. And that gives you a tighter lips, which gives you a higher note, and you're getting a faster speed, but you're really not cutting the volume down. But for beginning students, he says that's the way people normally do to get them to play higher. Yeah. But in actuality, you need to blow faster, not blow harder. Harder might make it go faster, but less volume and faster. And so when we practice, we should think about that. And I think if you get that in your mindset, it's going to help you play higher notes, but also it's not going to wear your lips out as much because you're not using the lip compression as much if you're using and relying on your lungs. So he says,
that's a good point, because they always tell you you need more air. You need to have plenty of air. Make sure you have plenty of air. I've always, in my mind, I've heard that as blow harder. And, you know, they're not really saying that, but that's what I hear. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. I think, no, I've not been understanding what I thought I was understanding for all.
I thought this was like what do they call it? A quantum shift in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think that they really should say blow faster, but with less volume.
Right.
And so if you practice those breathing exercises, and I've been practicing and I've been holding my hand, trying to direct the air more here. I think with the French horn, you blow it a little down to get the air to swirl in the mouthpiece. And that's what my embouchure naturally does. And I had a trumpet instructor say I should play French horn, but they needed French horns. So maybe that's why he was saying it.
Ah,
And I really didn't want to play French horn, though I do have a French horn here I got for, yeah, I think it was $100. And it's a B flat 8 French horn, which is kind of nice. And I like it. The notes are really close together. So the main thing he said is to play a note that is an octave higher. The speed should be twice as much, but the volume should be 1/2. So it's something to think about. Airspeed is hard to visualize what is happening inside our bodies. With a beginner, they say to play higher, they say blow harder, and pinch your lips together. But this is not ideal because it's going to wear out your lips. And he said for 10 years he played that way, and it wore his lips out more. He said once he switched over to relying more on the lung compression and thinking about speed and less volume, he did much better. And he also said, I'm repeating this, Brian said he's not blaming any instructor because he doesn't know how to instruct students any better than that. But maybe telling them to blow faster would be a better concept. He says this is relying on the first compression, mostly the aperture, making your lips tighter. And so I use that method for his first 20 years. So I put T1 for the three compressions. And that reminds me of Terminator. And T2 is Terminator 2. But anyway, he said it's inefficient. This way of playing can go on only as long until something has to give. And that, he feels, is flesh against metal when you're using just your embouchure. And that will wear out your lips and damage your lips. And Kathy, I like the fact that practice you say, I'm going to sit this one out.
oh.
And give your lips a rest. And I think all of us should do that every once in a while because it really, with his practice techniques, he says, ideally you play the exercise and then you wait the length of that exercise. So if we play La Cucaracha, then we should wait the length of La Cucaracha. Now, if you're playing the fourth part and you're playing the boom, 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 it's probably not as wearing on your lips that you need to rest as much. But if you're playing the first part, so maybe it's good to alternate first and fourth and third and to give your lips a little break on the higher notes. So he says basically, go ahead, question?
I said, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
I
what
had
the
a cou-
hand
I had
means, though.
Yeah, I was raising my hand because I didn't know if my
Oh, I'm
thing
sorry.
was working, but
That's
I had a question about the tongue you mentioned. You know, it makes sense. You know, I understand the airfoil issue there, but in terms of practicality, have you been able to alter the speed by moving your tongue?
I think with the higher notes, if you use more of an E tongue like D instead of da, it can help. But Brian, he explains this actually in later lessons that cover the three of the compressions individually. He just wanted to cover the basic compressions here. But raising the tongue. Now he says that with the raising of the tongue, he doesn't particularly use any of the syllables because he finds the syllables in his mind a little bit restrictive. So he just concentrates on arching the tongue to get higher notes. And I guess once you practice that, you get used to raising the tongue on the higher notes without necessarily saying the consonants. Now he says if the consonants help you by saying E and raising your tongue, then do it. He's an advocate of not lowering the jaw on the real low notes, and he gave us some exercises on that because he says if you lower the jaw, it's hard to be flexible and go up and down very quickly. He says you can lower your tongue on the low notes, and if you go ah, you can really notice that your tongue goes down, just like the dentist or the doctor's office. He says say ah, and so if you're playing ah, and I think we're automatically lowering our tongue for the ahs. Now it's the e's and the higher notes, which we're not necessarily doing that with, because I don't think all of us have gotten used to that. But if you're playing it and you think about arching the tongue, and notice I'm playing pretty high now, and I think it's because I've been practicing the faster air and less volume. And so, of course, that's in playing that way in 10 minutes, I don't keep it probably, but we're working on it. So that's what he was talking about. And I think just maybe visualizing that your tongue is raising up to do it. And even if you say the word ka, it's using the back of the tongue, and we do that for double tonguing, double tongue. That's really good.
I like
that. And the ka kind of raises the back of the tongue anyway. So if you think ka, and e tends to bring it a little further forward in your mouth. I think just being aware that that's what's happening. And then when you're thinking about the higher notes, be aware to bring your tongue up and a little forward. And I think you're going to have more ease at playing the higher notes. So I think once you get it in your mind, it'll start working. So
this guy Matonis actually has X-rays of the side of his head while he's playing high notes and low notes, and you can see his tongue going like this and come down and come up and go down. But it's the middle of the tongue.
Yeah,
and
it's the very middle of the tongue.
Press the middle of your tongue against the roof of your mouth and blow. Nothing comes out. But
Yeah.
So slower it, just lower it down, and you can hear it go ee, and I think that's the motion you need.
I think if we did that when we were breathing and just practice moving your tongue at the same time with our breathing
Right.
exercises.
Romeo's always telling you, drop your jaw, to get that full sound. You can't, because you have to keep your armature there. But you can lower them back, and you do that by lowering
I won't mention who says drop your jaw a lot, especially to the trumpets, but it does work to drop your jaw, but then it's harder to be flexible and do quick changes in notes. Now, if you're playing very long passages of low notes and being very melodic,
Right.
I think dropping your jaw makes a lot of sense, because you're not, if you're just playing half notes or whole notes and you're being very low or medium range, I think dropping your tongue makes a whole lot of sense. But if you're doing quick passage where you're going,
especially in those big mouthpieces, you got a long ways to go to get back again. It doesn't make any sense. So I said, well, he's a reed player. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
No, but a lot of people say drop your jaw, and maybe when you read, if you drop your jaw, with clarinets you actually have to pinch the reed. With saxophones you don't.
Right.
But yeah, so dropping your jaw on a clarinet might make a big difference.
Maybe.
But still, if you have to bring your jaw back up, it's going to reduce your flexibility.
So when your jaw, think tongue.
Yes. So and he gave us exercises, some slur exercises, where he told us to keep our jaw in a fixed position and just practice raising the tongue to change the intonation. So so he talks about the first method of using your lips and compression is like putting your thumb over a garden hose. It makes the hole smaller and the water comes out faster, but you don't have the control of the volume of water, because it's still trying to put the same amount of volume out. So what he says is that with the other two compressions, which is your tongue and your lungs, it's like a garden hose that has 3 nozzles inside it. And then the good player can decide which ones he's using. And so with that garden hose, instead of just using your thumb over the end, which could wear, actually, if you've ever done that with a garden hose for a long time, it hurts your thumb after a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
And that could damage your lips. Though those internal lungs and tongue inside that hose can give you more flexibility and more control. And he really recommends that using your lungs to do that. Now, when you're using your lungs and supporting that compression, it's not necessarily a lot of volume. For the higher notes, it's less volume, but more speed. So that's something to think about when you're doing the breathing exercises. I actually printed out, and I don't know where it is right now, printed out a mouthpiece, but I put a very small hole in it. So when I blow on it, I have to use a lot of pressure, but I get a lot of speed and I get less volume automatically. And so I'm trying to figure out what, I think I called it I don't remember what I called it, but I came up with a good name for punishing your lungs. And and so even with an old mouthpiece you have, if you put a eraser in it or a cork and drill a very small hole, what Dan and Mary were doing from their drum corps is they were holding the valves down half the way and playing.
Yeah.
And it really restricts your flow. And so you have to work on forcing the speed through. And it does give you good support. And they used to practice that in drum corps. Now that's one thing
That for
Brian,
high notes? Is that for high notes?
it's for high notes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he said, and I like that exercise where they're doing the by doing a few valves. We were talking about it with Ed to change the sound, you know, and you can, what do they call that, Greg? When you made the note go down by pushing the valve halfway? Falls?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Okay. I
Sounds
don't
about
remember,
right.
but I like it. I've been playing with it with especially Minnie the Moocher. Definitely needs some of those in there every once in a while. And also, what do they call it when you put a couple quick notes in front?
Oh.
Yeah.
Grace notes?
Grace notes. Yeah, grace notes. And I've been doing a couple grace notes with that. It's really fun. With the Incredibles, there's a few places where there's grace. Da 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 da. I don't quite have that, but I'm working on it. Yeah, but I really like that. So he says that with the garden hose, you just don't have the control, and you need the other ones. So he says it's also an incomplete analogy. With the hose, there's no back pressure. With a trumpet, it's designed to also accelerate the air, the mouthpiece, the trumpet, and it gives you back pressure. So if you played like a garden hose that has no back pressure, it's going to give you a different feeling. The pressure, the sound wave going through the horn is created by the air flowing through, but the mouthpiece also, since it gets narrowed, has a Venturi effect of speeding up the air, and the back pressure, we have to play with that. So he says, if you're playing like you're playing a garden hose, you're going to get too much overblowing. And with overblowing, you don't get as nice a sound. And we talked about that with just using the mouthpiece, if I can get it out. And when you're playing, you're not even buzzing. So you're actually playing to where almost buzzing. And then if you do that and you blow, so it's actually not even buzzing on the mouthpiece, which a lot of people talk about buzzing on your mouthpiece. And he thinks if you do that a lot, you're actually damaging your lips because you can blow much harder than you should. So if you're going to buzz your lips with or without the mouthpiece, and he does a whole 2 octaves like that, which I can't quite do. You really have to use your tongue with that. But but he says only 30 seconds, especially for beginners on that, or you're going to be damaging your lips. But overblowing is one thing that uses up our air, but also it doesn't give us as nice a tone. So cutting back on the volume of the air that you're using in general actually makes it much better. So really that's what he was talking about. Let's see if there's anything. Arching the tongue. And he says he's going to cover these in other lessons. Maybe next time I'll do the tongue arch and talk about that. Okay.
Hey.
And that's it.
That's it.
I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Oh, where are you going? You're going fishing again up in
I'm
Alaska?
going up to Yellowstone Park in Grand
Oh,
Tetons.
that's right.
Well,
Yep.
I think they have cutthroat
Nice.
trout there.
Yeah, I'm bringing my fishing pole.
The cutthroat trout have a red gill here. And
Yeah.
the throat is cut. I did a
I've caught those before.
cutthroat trouts, and I don't remember.
Oh,
But,
we have a kitchen too, so I can cook them.
very good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I got to get back to painting house. So,
How fun. See you all in 2 weeks.
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.